So, Dragon Age the Veilguard is gonna launch in less than 48 hours, and it's already proving to be one of the most divisive titles BioWare has ever released. On one side, we got the game journalists singing praises for this game to high heaven, giving 9s and 10s across the board, while on the other side, we got the YouTubers and average gamers ripping this game to shreds. Even Skillup, who's known for having the most milquetoast takes, absolutely hated this title. And the footage he uses to back up his criticisms is pretty damning to say the least.
Emmerich, you clearly find talking about dragons boring.
What? How? Who doesn't like dragons?
Aren't you curious why Tash likes them as much as you like necromancy?
The question crossed my mind.
And maybe Emmerich could help demystify magic, Tash.
Why is this game getting such high scores from every single major publication, while the average gamers are trashing it? Well, I think one of the biggest reasons as to why Dragon Age the Veilguard received so many high scores is because the game very clearly panders to the modern audience, which is what most of the gaming news outlets are occupied by. So I don't think it's that far of a reach to say that many of the game journalists that reviewed this title had a strong bias for it because they wanted to see more games like it being made. And I mean, this isn't the first time this has happened before. When Starfield came out, every reviewer and their grandmother were praising this game like it was the next coming of Jesus, some of them even calling this the game of the year. But then when the title actually came out and the average gamer got their hands on it, they noticed the flaws were pretty massive and it was not at all the masterpiece that the journals claimed it to be. And now we're seeing the same thing happening here. The game is critically acclaimed by every major publication, but the players don't see what makes this game so good. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the classic case of game devs making their games for game journalists and not actual gamers. This is why I advocate for people to disregard any reviews from game journalists and look for reviews from actual everyday normal people. Because it's pretty obvious that these game journalists are extremely biased towards any game that placates towards their worldview. Hell, I mean, just look at IGN for example. They gave Dustborn a 7 out of 10, the same score they gave Dragon Ball Sparking 0. Now, in what universe are these two games ever even considered near comparable in terms of quality? Only in the warped and completely nonsensical grading system like IGN's would this ever make sense. Now, does that mean I think that Dragon Age the Veilguard is going to be one of the worst games ever made? No, I don't think it's going to be that bad, but it sure as hell does not look like a 9 out of 10 game. It honestly looks like a 5 or a 6 to me, but I'm a pretty harsh critic, so take my word with a grain of salt. Anyway, another reason why the critic reception seems so overwhelmingly positive towards the game is because it seems like the reviews have also been heavily curated. Now obviously this has always been happening, where publishers only give review codes to reviewers who they think will give them positive reviews. This phenomenon is called access journalism, where journalists give positive reviews to a game in order to receive special privileges from publishers, usually in the form of early access or private media tours or something like that. This is how these giant corporations are able to manipulate the aggregate reviews to be skewed in their favor so that they can maximize the chances of people pre-ordering the game. It's extremely deceptive behavior that creates a culture where reviewers are afraid to criticize a game because they fear they might lose out on any future early access codes. I mean, it pretty much happened to Fextra Life because he dared to give some slight criticisms to Dragon Age Veilguard. And because he and a few others weren't fully glazing the game during the previews, EA decided to completely ghost them after the media tour, even though they have an extremely big channel. So that's why many of the game reviews out right now seem so disingenuous. Now, that doesn't mean I think that these journalists aren't sharing their genuine thoughts, because they probably are, but it's really concerning when the reviews don't line up with the audience reception. For example, the IGN review of Dragon Age has been massively dislike bombed because it's just 14 minutes of the reviewer gushing over every little thing about the game while not providing any actual criticism. If you compare the IGN review to Skillup's review, it's actually pretty concerning just how many of the major flaws the IGN review actually glosses over because the reviewer was too busy soy-facing over how pretty the hair is. And this doesn't just apply to the IGN review, pretty much every other game journalist is wetting themselves over this game. Game Rant gave it a 10 out of 10, an even higher score than what they gave Baldur's Gate 3. And Eurogamer gave it a 5 out of 5, a score that's also higher than what they gave Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, am I taking crazy pills here? So you're telling me that this game is better than Baldur's Gate 3? I get that there are different strokes for different folks and all, but this just seems like it's reaching too far here. Like, this has got to be one of the biggest astroturfs I've seen within the gaming industry. I wouldn't even be surprised if these game journalists with some industry plans placed there as some corporate psyop to get more people to pre-order their games. I mean, it also doesn't help that pretty much all these reviews use the phrase return to form, like they're all using the same AI generated script. Anyways, the point is, don't trust these game reviewers because their views don't accurately represent the core audience of gamers and are instead made in the interest of keeping their special access to these publishers. If you want to see a truly unbiased review, then go look at the Steam reviews or the user reviews on Metacritic because they'll give you a much more accurate reflection from the perspective of an average gamer rather than some Joe Schmo from IGN who thought Concord was a 10 out of 10. Anyways, if you guys want me to do an unbiased review of Dragon Age the Veilguard, then let me know down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.